Okay, this meeting is to discuss expanding prefect dogfooding, Gitaly Cluster on GitLab.com. Sharing my screen. And so I called this meeting because I was asked to take a look at if there are any ways we can dog food Gitaly Cluster better on .com, more than what we're doing now. And this probably would include staging because we use it there as well. We dog food it there. And in fact, 100% of our new projects are using prefect. So prefect probably gets even more exposure as far as like new projects, because on .com, we aren't creating any new projects on Gitaly Cluster. We're just using the GitLab Inc. namespace projects on there. I created a new epic, a link to the incident if you need background. And then also, it seemed like we did come up with a root cause for the customer issue, which was network jitter between the database and prefect. I'm not sure how conclusive that was, but it looked pretty like a smoking gun to me. So with all of that, I'm not sure, like, I don't think we want to go as far as introducing jitter, like network jitter between the prefect service and the database.
I mean, I think that would be a good test, but the thing is that we cannot break staging currently.
Yeah. So kind of ignoring like ignoring the root cause for now. I was just thinking, like, are we giving prefect enough attention on .com, and are we exercising it enough? And I'm wondering, even like, I was reading through the docs, and I don't think there's a way that we can force a Gitaly cluster to be unhealthy, unless if I misunderstand that. Do you know this, Alejandro? If you can like force a failover event?
I mean, you could stop the Gitaly process on the current primary, and that will force a failover. That would be the most blunt approach. And yeah, you could do some more chaos monkey stuff, like putting a firewall rule between prefect and the database, or between prefect and Gitaly. Something like that could also induce a failover.
Do you think it's worth doing these sort of things on production? Obviously we would start with staging and do it there first, but I don't know. I kind of think, like, since prefect Gitaly cluster is only used for GitLab Inc. projects on .com, maybe it's worth like doing regular planned failovers. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I feel iffy about it, because I think even downtime for the few things that we have on prefect on GitLab.com, like the GitLab repository or the www.gitlab.com repository, I think those will be disrupted. So
right, because there would be like a disruption of, like, I'm not sure, like, what type of disruption are we looking at?
I mean, I think I may need to refresh on this, but I think a failover should be fairly quick, in the matter of seconds, seconds of disruption, say 20 seconds, because I think the health check fails at 10 seconds, and then you need to do the failover. But yeah, well, my initial instinct is to restrain that kind of stuff to staging.
Yeah.
I think it also depends on what you want to prove by doing the testing, because if you want to be proving that, I guess sorry, let me rephrase it. It depends on what you want to be proving by having the test run. can we
Mhm.
prove this by running it in staging and that is enough of a test? Or is the desire to do this on production just to have further confidence that this is production ready?
Right. I think for sure we would notice if there was something fundamentally wrong with failover, it would reveal itself on staging immediately because we depend on staging for QA and deployments and everything. Like that would work. What we don't have on staging are tight SLO thresholds for like errors. And I think on production, the advantage is like if we're saying, but this also depends, I think, whether we say failover should be a very minor disruption. If we're talking 20 seconds, then I think that kind of rules it out of doing like a failover in production. I think that's too long. If it was like on the order of like a second or so, then maybe it would be better.
But what we could also do is we could schedule this to happen no more than like once a quarter or once a half, and it's scheduled to run in the low time of the day. Perhaps this is done in APAC time, because this isn't something that we would need to do on a monthly or weekly basis at all. We could do this very infrequently to have that confidence.
Yeah. During downtime. Yeah, I think that's a good idea too.
Yeah.
Alejandro, like what if we had a way to have a like without stopping Gitaly, like what if we just had a way to do a cleaner failover?
I might be wrong, but there might be a prefect command that you can issue to do a switchover, right? So something similar to the difference between a failover and a switchover on Patroni. But that's probably per repository, because now on prefect world, every primary is per repository.
Yeah. I see.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I can see the thing is that I still kind of, maybe this parallel that I'm drawing in my head is wrong, but I see it like the closest parallel that I can think is Patroni failovers and switchovers, and we never test in production that works. We just assume that works, but I guess it's different in that land because we have much greater confidence that Patroni failover works, I guess.
I mean, in my opinion, we probably should be doing regular failovers and switchovers, and they should be like no-op events for Patroni, or at least something that we do on a regular basis.
Okay.
I think, like, of course, with Postgres, there's always the risk of data loss still failover, so we don't want to do that. But and there's also, is there a risk of data loss on prefect on Gitaly cluster failover?
Yes, there is.
There is.
Yeah.
And does that end up being difficult to reconcile? Like if there's data loss, is it possible that the database, the Rails database and Gitaly and the Git repository data is out of sync in some way? Like, does it turn into data corruption and then we have to like manually fix it, or what? How does that?
Yes. Yeah. And we've actually had some experience. I can dig up the issue, but this happens once already in production, and we had to do SQL surgery, but do inserts and updates to put everything correctly. So yeah, there might be. So obviously, prefect has built-in consistency mechanism, so it should recover from most scenarios. But there's if we find a data loss scenario that is not handled by prefect, then yes, surgery is possibly required.
Okay. So I think
that would be a good thing to finding out those current blind spots where Prefect doesn't handle consist. That would be a good thing. If we can do that in staging, that's good. If we can, but yeah, maybe we can find an acceptable risk in production.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds to me that if we want to move forward with this, we may have to implement this on staging for a bit to see how comfortable we are with regular failover events. And then following that, we would maybe move this to production. And if so, we would do it on a less frequent interval.
What's also nice about doing it in production on a less frequent interval is you can then make it a bigger and bigger test over time. So you start out with it being the one cluster that we have. If you expand that then to when we create a second or third cluster, but then you can also bring it into other types of HA testing over time.
Yeah. And maybe we could also discuss whether we think it's worthwhile. We could create a new prefect cluster that doesn't have such critical projects on it that we regularly use for failover testing in production. And maybe that.
I think, I mean, I think it would be beneficial to check with anyone who's doing any sort of compliance monitoring on this, because it might be helpful to be running failover testing on used clusters on a regular basis. But I'm not sure where we stand on certain of the compliance frameworks.
How does this tie into compliance? What do you mean?
Data loss and data recovery and general HA practices are often part of compliance frameworks.
I see. Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to overcomplicate it by making that a requirement upfront, because if it's not a requirement upfront, let's not
sure.
Complicated. Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking as to start, we could even just have a prefect cluster that's not hosting any customer data, but just hosting some of our own projects that are not as crucial as the handbook and GitLab FOSS and GitLab EE. That could be one option. Yeah, so number two, how much prefect are we using right now? So we have about 2,500 projects on the prefect cluster. As Alejandro said, here it's hosting all of the forks of the handbook, also GitLab FOSS, also Omnibus GitLab. I assume that maybe it's all of the GitLab org namespace projects. I'm not sure, but there's, it's only those. I don't think there are any random customer projects there.
Yeah, no, I don't think there are. We at some point we open Prefect 01 to new projects. So some new projects are there. I think it was on for like 2 days, and then we found a regression and we switched it off again. But those projects were not moved. So there are non-GitLab projects there.
Oh, great.
A small amount, and as far as we know, no marquee customers are there. The main complication is, right, so GitLab FOSS, GitLab EE is not there, it's on the Canary shard, which is not.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But GitLab FOSS is there, and one of the reasons why there's also other people in that shard is because if you fork GitLab FOSS, you also land on the prefect shard.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's another reason why there's other people in that shard, people that have forks of GitLab fork.
So I guess the main ones are the handbook. I think Omnibus GitLab I saw, so that probably is there, and
yes.
GitLab FOSS and all of the forks of those projects.
Yeah, and I said there to answer the question, should we expand our usage? I think we should put prefect in front of every Gitaly shard. That is my position, and I don't know how fast or slow we should do that. I put that on point B, but
oh yeah, I see.
But yeah, I think we should be consistent and have the same stack for every shard, because right now we have just different code paths. So some requests are going directly Rails to Gitaly, some other requests are going Rails prefect Gitaly. And I think if we want to consider prefect a first class component, then everything should go through prefect when we have enough confidence in it, even if we're not doing replication or failover.
From a high level, what infrastructure, actually additional infrastructure, would we need to make this happen? So would every Gitaly shard need its own prefect?
We have a lot of flexibility on how we approach this. So you could have a single prefect cluster to serve all of our 60 some Gitaly shards. That is a possibility. You could also have, you could say, you could establish a relation. So let's say, no, we think maybe 60 is too much. Let's say we want 20 Gitaly shards per prefect cluster. So then you will have 3 or 4 prefect clusters. I think one complication is that we don't have real data on which to base this decision. I mean, I think there's a business angle in which you could say, let's have a prefect cluster for the marquee shards. I think that's reasonable, right? And then how about the other ones? I don't have clear data. My first impression, based on, if you look at the CPU usage for the current prefect cluster, is super low, and the CPU usage for the database is super low. So my first try will be have a single prefect cluster for all of 60 some shards, and then only have a separate cluster for the marquee shards, just to give extra strength, extra isolation to that marquee shard. And then there's another issue about, should we have a prefect C and canary? That's another possible cluster.
Question, Alejandro. So you're proposing we have a prefect cluster in front of all 60 Gitaly shards, but without duplicating the actual Gitaly shards. So just acting as like a proxy in front of the current 60 shards.
Yes, correct.
And so just to stress test the prefect how to handle the actual traffic and all of that without actually duplicating the data. If I understand correctly.
Yeah.
I see. Do we actually try doing such thing like in staging? Because I'm not really sure how prefect is going to handle like having a single copy of the repository. Would it just go working normally, or would it have some problems with reaching quorum and all this stuff?
That's a good question, because we technically did try this, but it was when prefect was still proxy only, before it had replication. So obviously in that case, it worked. So my assumption is that proxy only mode continues to work, but that's a good assumption to test in staging, and it will be very obvious if it doesn't work. So, but yes, we should do all prefect on staging first, definitely.
How will this work with the storages in the Rails database? Because right now, a project maps to a repository storage, and one of those repository storage is the prefect load balancer. If you're saying we're going to move everything under that prefect load balancer, do we move the projects like under a new repository storage, or how would that work?
No, not exactly. So I think I can, with it, very quickly say, so if I open here on chef repo, GPRT base, I'm gonna, can I share my screen for a moment? I think.
Yeah, sure.
It should be right. So the current prefect shard has a name, which says prefect, and then it points to the load balancer. I think the only thing that we will need to do to change other shards to be on this same prefect cluster would be to say NFS file 67, just point it to the load balancer. So you wouldn't change.
Yeah, I see.
So the repository will still be hosted on Rails eyes on shard NFS 567. It will be exactly the same load balancer, but the repository name is part of the payload of the request. So prefect will know how to route that request. I guess it will be a little bit ugly that you will have NFS and that goes to prefect and that also goes to prefect, but that might just be transitory. And then on the prefect side, you will say, okay, then you will have NFS file 56, 67, did I say, whatever. And then that will go to address, and then you will copy whatever was in there. That will go to address TCP, and that should work.
I see. So this would be nice because we could do it gradually across shards, right? We could configure prefect first to be aware of the Gitaly servers that we're going to transition over, which would be a no-op, like that just won't change anything. And then we can slowly update the storage paths shard by shard. And this would allow us to see the effect of load on the prefect cluster and the database, right?
Yes.
And then rolling back would be just flipping it back in the storage config. I think this sounds like a pretty good idea. I guess the question is whether there's value in doing, like, what is the value in having all these Gitaly shards under prefect when we don't have any replication? Is there kind of like fundamental value in that?
What I'm interested in getting more data on is prefect handling more and more traffic. Yeah. I think that's to me that's just the value. And then I guess I'll contradict myself on not wanting to try stuff on production, because I think this might reveal a bottleneck that we didn't know of, because we haven't ever put that much load on prefect.
I mean, we could start with the file HDD servers, which were like the archived projects that we think are not as important because they're on spinning disks rather than SSD. That would be a good place to start. I mean, it makes our blast radius a little bit smaller since those are fairly inactive.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like a good thing to do, and we'll have to talk probably. Who do you think we should talk to on the Gitaly side to see if this is like also like a good idea and whether this will work? Anyone in particular, or should we just do it?
Yeah, no, I think I'm not sure yet. Just contact the team.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should. I think putting a message in the Gitaly channel saying that this is what we would like to do and who can assist, and this is the issue where they can watch it. But I also wanted to ask before we get started with this, did we ever complete the readiness review for prefect? Because I remember that's gotten to some kind of paused state. I've linked it as the last item there, item 5.
Yeah, I see.
But do we have to get that finished before we move ahead?
I honestly didn't know that this readiness review was still outstanding.
Yeah, it just ended.
Yeah, I've been trying to get it merged, and to answer the question, yes, I think this should get merged. I think part of the reason is there hasn't been a DRI on who says this is okay to merge now. I think maybe we should start by getting that. But yeah, this is, and by the way, this is a readiness review only for proxy, not for replication. So presumably, once this is done, we should start a new one for replication and failover.
But yes, we already have replication deployed. We already have, right?
Yeah, we already have replication and proxy. So that's not ideal.
why don't we merge this and then start a new readiness review just for expanding the expanding prefect to, if we decide to go with the archived projects, we could start a readiness review for that.
Sure.
You know, and we can even use the same markdown. Like we don't have to create a new one, just create a new section for it. Maybe, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
That makes sense.
All right. So I think we're good on point number 2. For number 3, do you guys see any advantage in creating? I think we already touched on this a bit. It sounds to me like there isn't a clear need or immediate need for creating a second prefect cluster, right? It probably doesn't give us any new information.
Yeah, I think it doesn't. No.
I think the only reason we would do this is that if we wanted to do failover testing and possibly, you know, risky testing, it would isolate things a bit more. But other than that, I think we already kind of touched on number 4. Yeah, I don't know.
On 3, I was gonna link the issue for adding prefect canary. That might be a reason to have a separate. So there's an issue already discussing that possibility. And then, as I said, maybe a prefect for my key customers. Those will be the 2, but I guess we will only create a prefect for my key customers when we are more confident on the with the rest of our testing.
I realize we're out of time. If you guys have another meeting, feel free to leave. I think we only have like a few more minutes left. For the canary, I was thinking about this, and what do you see here as, like, why do you think we need the canary? Is that because like we are releasing prefect? How often are we releasing new versions of prefect? I don't even know the answer to this question. Do you know? Is it frequent or is it?
I don't either. No.
Okay.
But the advantage that I see is to have. I think it's good to have a full canary stack, and of course, prefect is supposed to be compatible with the previous GitLab versions, so that there's no. But it's good to have, if we're going to have the latest GitLab version in Canary, that it also runs with the latest prefect version, with the latest prefect Canary version.
Right. I guess the problem with prefect as well as Gitaly is that we have no way to ensure that requests that go to the Canary front end go to the Canary Gitaly or prefect, right? So you kind of need both forwards and backwards compatibility for one version, you know. Yeah. But that's kind of true of deployments in general. You know, like, I mean, well, actually that's not true, because we always deploy to Gitaly first, and we deploy to prefect first. So we would probably just, yeah, I guess we would just do the same in Canary. So I guess you're saying this, Alejandro, because like if we start expanding the current prefect Gitaly cluster, then I guess the advantages of having Canary become more and more, right? Because then like there'll be a larger and larger blast radius for problems.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe, yeah, I see. So maybe at some point we should decide like whether we should just create a Canary, but I'm not sure whether we want to do that first or whether we would like expand the current prefect cluster first.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's lower
Mhm.
priority. Just asking just answering the question, what other Gitaly cluster would we have? Maybe it would be, those would be two candidates, but yeah, let's focus on the main one.
Mhm. Okay. And number 5, I think we already touched on. So the action here is Alejandro will merge. Unless if there are outstanding questions. And we will start. Something like that. Cool. I think that's it. If there's nothing else, I think we can end the meeting. Thanks everyone for attending. What I'll do is create issues on the epic for expanding the prefect cluster to the file HTTP servers. I think that'll probably be the smallest iteration for that. And also another issue for looking into failover testing, how we should proceed. Is there anything else that I'm missing that we should track? If not, I think we can end the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.